All right. Hi, everybody. It is week 12, and we are doing the chapters 35, 36, and 37 in our 35 is all about social influences. The typical outcome of social influence is beliefs and behaviors that become more similar to those around us. At times, the change occurs in spontaneous or automatic sense without any obvious intent to one person or change to the other. Perhaps you learn to like jazz or rap music because your roommate was playing a lot of it. You didn't really didn't want to like music, and your roommate didn't force it on you. Your preference changed in a positive way, and Robert Collini and his colleagues found that college students were more likely to throw litter on the ground when they just had seen another person throw some paper on the ground, and were least likely to litter when they had seen another person pick up and throw paper in the dish can. The researchers interpret it as a kind of spontaneous conformity, a tendency to follow behavior of others, often entirely out of awareness. Even the emotional states were more similar to those we spend more time with. Influence also occurs because we believe that other people have valid knowledge about opinion or issue. And we use that information to help to make decisions. For example, if you have a flight and land in an unfamiliar airport and you follow the flow of other passengers and disembark before you, then the case of assumption would be that they know where they're going and follow will likely to be the baggage carousel. Example could be getting lost in a crowd. Social psychologists are intended to study the self-awareness that because such an important influence on behavior, people become more likely to violate acceptable mainstream social norms when, for example, they put Halloween masks or engage in other behaviors that hide their identities. For example, the members of militant white supremacist organization Ku Klux Klan wear white robes and hats when they meet, and they engage in violent racist behavior. Similarly, when people are in large crowds, they have a demonstration or riot, they become so much part of a group that they experience de individualization, the loss of individual self awareness and individual accountability in groups, and become more attuned to themselves as a group members and specific social norms in particular situation. Not all examples of de individualization cause alarm or concern. However, consider community based solution to crime prevention. Bear Clan Patrol, which is a volunteer run organization with membership in Winnipeg, Calgary, and Edmonton. Members provide a sense of safety, clarity, and belonging in both members and the communities they serve. Volunteer patrol teams lead out the dark, cold nights and help the most vulnerable living in the community. They're armed with care packages, they clean up discarded needles and drug paraphernalia, and they distribute warm clothing and blankets. And they provide a set of eyes on the street where the police attendance is likely to serve a living in community. The organizations formed in response to growing number of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, MMIG, in urban and rural areas. The early founders of Being Clan expressed a desire to assume their traditional responsibility to provide care and support members of the community through culturally specific approaches to security, safety, and check-ins. And Being Clan Patrol demonstrates how a group of like-minded individuals come together to address common concerns, to commemorate, provides a stronger sense of purpose and energy and possibility more than individuals act alone. Informational social influence is a change in opinions or behavior that occurs when we conform to people who we believe have accurate information. And we base our beliefs on those presented by reporters, scientists, doctors, and lawyers because we believe that they have expertise in certain fields than we have. But we have the use of our friends and our colleagues and information, and we choose a jacket on our basis of our friends' advice about what looks good to us, that we're using informational conformity. We believe in our friends have good judgment about things that matter to us. Informational social influence is often the end result of social comparison, the process of comparing our opinions for those others to gain accurate appraisal of the validity of opinion or behavior. Informational social influence leads to real and long-lasting changes and beliefs. The result of conformity due to the informational social influence is normally private acceptance. Real change opinions on part of the individual, and we believe that choosing a jacket was the right thing to do, and the crowd will lead us to the baggage carousel. In other cases, we conform not because we want to have that valid knowledge, but rather to meet the goal of belonging to and being accepted by a group that we care about. We start smoking cigarettes or we buy shoes that we cannot really afford in order to impress others, and we do the things not really much we think they're the right thing to do, but rather that we want to be liked. While praising normative social influence, when we express opinions and behave in ways that help us be accepted, but that keep us from being isolated and rejected by others. When we engage in conformity due to the normative social influence, we conform to social norms, socially accepted beliefs about what we do or what we do in particular social context. Although in some cases conformity may be purely informational and purely normative, in most cases the goals of being accurate and being accepted go hand in hand. Therefore, information and normative social influence often at the same time. When soldiers obey their commanding officers, they probably do it because they're doing it, normative conformity, and because they think it's the right thing to do, informational conformity. And when you start working a new job, you may copy the behavior of your own colleagues because you want to like them. You want the well is because you assume they know how things should be done. It has been argued that the distinction between informational and normative conformity is more apparent than real, and that may not be possible to fully designate them. Nonconformity occurs when an individual or group of individuals fail to conform to rules, laws, and social norms. Why would some individuals elect nonconformists? The need for uniqueness is seen as a trait or temporary motivation resulting in situational triggers. Some individuals exhibit a greater need to feel different from those around in the anonymous majority, and sometimes there are situations that create a need to feel unique. One situation that triggers this is when you feel too similar to others, making a major position undesirable. In this case, you opt for nonconformity. Where might we find examples of nonconformity in marketing? Well, all around us, actually. If I look at my children's clothes, I find patches of intentionally mismatched socks for kids like mine who usually be bothered to finding matching ones. When I went shopping for Christmas presents this year, I was amazed to find Barbie dolls that didn't conform to what I grew up with. They were sized and shaped more naturally and came with kids representing professions and interests far more outside the scope of Barbies that represented for decades. In pop media, we see examples of nonconformists all the time, like Lady Gaga is a perfect example of somebody who wears difference with pride. Morty Cyber writes, she is a talented singer and performer that wears mere dresses, bubble outfits, rubber suits, and lovely names her fans her monsters. And she does it differently than all the other artists, and she isn't afraid to create a risk and create enemies. She owns her own differences, and many people are drawn to her radically different nonconformity ways. Reference groups, those are social groups, work groups, family, and close friends. Consumer identifies with the way they want to join. They influence consumers' attitudes and behavior. A reference group helps shape a person's attitudes and behaviors. Time for a video. Trying to get my TED Talk. Oops, forgot to put TED Talk on here. Sorry, guys. Conscious consumerism. My cousin is a prime example of this. She does not buy from top retailers. She doesn't buy anything from Amazon. Her go-to place is like Salvation Army and Goodwill. She likes to buy up, what is it? Up fashion or like yesterday's fashion. So she likes to wear yesterday's styles today. And she believes it's a way not to hurt the environment. We're reusing clothes. Same thing, like she has art pieces from like trash in her house. She's the first one I know that ate organic, and she also does not believe in vaccines. I think she only had 3 vaccines in her life or in her kids. I think she said she got chickenpox, polio, and meningitis, I believe. It was really weird she picked chickenpox. But anyways, that's what she did. She only had 3, and her kids only had 3. I remember she told me that, and I was like, chickenpox, polio, and meningitis. She's like, well, meningitis is really bad. You can become blind, you can go deaf, you can lose limbs. Okay. Then she said, same thing with measles. Okay, I heard that too. I think I had measles and I had chickenpox. I had a lot of things. I've had COVID twice. I've flu many times. Whether I'm vaccinated or not, I still seem like I get the viruses. But that's what she said. And like I said, she was the one that liked to go to thrift stores. So she always is a conscious consumer. She doesn't like to think about wasting meat. She's a vegetarian and she tries to eat a lot of fruit and vegetables and minimize, wasting food. She lives in Los Angeles. She teaches part-time at UCLA English, and then she works at a Montessori school teaching little kids. And her husband, which is my cousin, he teaches at UCLA Law School. He's been there for years doing educational law. He also is a director of the Latino
From the
Center.
beginning, we've dreamed of creating a better future. Now, we're setting out to be carbon neutral by 2050. And we're gonna keep dreaming, no matter where we go.
Kilometers for you guys.
Sorry, I started while I was chatting.
Good morning. So my story starts a long time ago, back in the 1970s. Go back in your time machine. I know half of your students, right? Seems so old. 1970s, back in the time before the internet, or before iPhones, back before Snapchat or selfies. I know, it's hard to believe. And my story starts with this woman, my mom. It's not a talk about her hair, although it's fabulous. I could do a whole talk about the hair. But it's about the kind of woman she was. She was a real activist. And I can remember when I was a tiny little girl, coming down, watching my mom sip a cup of coffee every morning as she cut out articles out of the newspaper, or Newsweek, or Time. And she was writing letters to her congressman about issues that mattered to her. I can remember canvassing the neighborhood before I was even in kindergarten for the next presidential election. I can remember my mom fighting for the Equal Rights Amendment for women. And I can remember protesting the Vietnam War before I even knew where Vietnam was. That was the kind of family I grew up in. That was the kind of woman my mom was. She was out to make a difference and out to have her voice be heard. Now, the interesting thing, so for context of where I grew up in a tiny little town of 2,000, one stoplight, middle of the U.S., one stoplight, middle of the U.S., closest movie theater was 80 miles away. That's 140 kilometers for you guys. Yeah, no cable TV either, right? So this is unbelievable, right? So I grew up there, and it was a super conservative town. My mom did not fit in, right? She was a feminist and an activist in this conservative little town. She didn't really care. She was out to stand up for what she believed in, out to make a difference, and out to have her voice be heard. And she taught my brothers and sisters and I to do the same thing. Now, my mom's activism went way beyond the political sphere. If I picked up a phone and called one of my brothers or sisters right now, we would all have a good laugh about my mom's boycotts. Because my mom was famous for boycotting. We were always boycotting something, right, as children. So I remember, I'm 7 or 8 years old, right? And a new brand of tennis shoes that will not go named, a new brand of tennis shoes has come out, and everybody has them in our town of 2,000, except for us. Because they were made in sweatshops in China, and so we couldn't wear them. So I have to go to school in my lame, dorky shoes. My friends all have the cool shoes. I'm on the recess playground explaining to them about these issues that are happening in Asia. You have to understand, how can you wear these shoes? I remember we couldn't eat our favorite chocolate bars because of some issue with apartheid in South Africa halfway around the world. And I can remember one Thanksgiving coming downstairs, and there's no orange juice on the kitchen table. And I was like, what's going on? I said, Mom, where's the orange juice? And she said, oh, we're not drinking that brand of orange juice anymore. And I said, why? And she said, it's a gay rights issue. And I was like 8, and I said, what's a gay rights issue? And my mom said, I'll tell you when you're older, just drink the milk. I was like, all right. So that was my first experience with conscious consumerism, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. When I talk about conscious consumerism, I mean being very, very mindful about the kinds of products we buy, the kinds of brands we choose to buy, and the companies that we buy from. And here's why it's important. Because we, as women, absolutely and unequivocally control the power of the purse. 3/4 of all purchases on the planet are made by women. 3/4 of all purchases are made by women. We control $20 trillion in consumer spending each and every year. That is a massive power. It's a massive power that we carry. And we have the opportunity, and I say to you today, actually, the responsibility to wield that purchase power, to be more conscious consumers, and wield that purchase power in a way that we reward companies and brands that are standing for our beliefs and values, and to hold accountable those who don't. That's the power of our purse. Now, I moved here a couple of years ago from the US, and when I was in the US, I led a company founded by women for women, a marketing company. And then when I moved here to Canada 2 years ago, I founded the same kind of company. It's an amazing company. And as part of our launch, we did this massive quantitative study amongst women, exploring the brands they love and the brands they loathe. And it was really, really interesting. I'm going to share just a couple of findings with you today. So first, we found that 4 out of 5 women said that they would be willing to pay more for goods or services from companies that had really strong corporate social responsibility. And that's great. It's great that we're all tuning in, being more mindful, being conscious consumers, right? But here's where I think it's really important. We, as women, are 3 times more likely than our male counterparts to actually consider a company's ethics before buying from them. I'm going to say that again. We as women are 3 times more likely than our male counterparts to consider a company's ethics. And that's why we have to wield the power of our purse. It was super interesting in our study. We asked women to talk to us about the brands and companies that they really loved, that they admired. And we got a list of all kinds of companies. This is just a couple. We had a big list, women telling us why. And I'm just going to give you a couple off the top of my head that came up over and over and over. First of all, the Body Shop. You know the Body Shop, right? Founded in 1976, very strong on animal rights issues, very strong against animal testing, strong on their human rights beliefs, sustainability, way before this was like cool and everyone was talking about it. Back in 1976, they were doing the right thing. We heard about Tom's shoes. Probably some people are wearing Tom's shoes today, so I wish I was. Tom's shoes, who since their founding put forth their one-for-one philosophy, right? Where they have sold 10 million pairs of shoes and given away another 10 million more to people in need. We heard about L'Oreal, who is known worldwide to be one of the best companies for women to work for. And we heard about Google, whose new Made with Code initiative, they've pledged $50 million to get girls and young women involved in careers in computer science. So I think that's super cool kind of companies that we need to get behind as women, show our support, use our power of our purse to show them that we're supporting. Because we have the ability as women to be disruptors in society and disruptors in economy simply by spending more mindfully. Now, in our study, we also explored the brands that women hate or loathe, which I loved. I got kind of obsessed by this part of the topic. And I found that, oh God, you can do a Facebook post or get in a chat with a girlfriend, and you very quickly find out the list of companies that are on her do not buy from list, right? She's very vocal about it. And in fact, in our study, we found that women were able to express as many as 10 companies that they were officially boycotting, or as I think we need to call it after today, girl-cotting.
Your child needs these 3 key factors to get into an Ivy League or top 25 university.
Okay.
And it's not having a good GPA or SAT score. Let me explain.
Why is it called boycotting? We're the ones with the power, right? So we're the ones they're not speaking up, we're speaking up. So let's call it girl-cotting. That's what it is, right? So what I say to you is, I'm just gonna pause for a moment and say, how mindful are you of the companies and brands you buy from? How much do you know? How much do you think about it? How much do you go to that super cheap discount retailer, but you know that they're sourcing their goods elsewhere to keep it so cheap? How mindful will you be, and what will you do after you leave today and go tomorrow shopping, maybe thinking a little bit differently about what you do? Now, one of the things I get asked a lot when I talk about this conversation is, yeah, but one person, what can I really do, right? Well, my mom thought we were gonna change the world from our kitchen table in a town of 2,000. So I think you get the picture from that. But I say that every action starts with one person. One person starts everything. And I have an example that I love about Starbucks. And I think Starbucks is a great company. In fact, they're a sponsor today. Starbucks does a lot of great things. They're strong on sustainability, they're strong on fair trade, they're strong in their communities. But here's what happened. After the Sandy Hook shootings back in 2012 that left 20 children dead in Newtown, Connecticut, a small group of moms came together and said, no more, we're done. We need to do something about gun violence. And so they banded together, they created a little advocacy group, and they decided that they were gonna take on giant corporations and try to make a difference. Now, Starbucks, for all the good things that they do, still allowed guns to be carried into their cafes and into their stores. Just like so many American retailers, this is very common, right? So they set out, these moms said, we're gonna put our target on Starbucks and hit them where it counts in their $4 skim non-fat lattes. I think that's right, I don't drink coffee. So they started a grassroots boycott across social media, and they called it Skip Starbucks Saturday. And they asked moms and families and friends to skip Starbucks, start boycotting, and try to hit them where it hurt. Started to gain momentum on social media, started to get talked about more, started to get some press, started to get talked about on the news shows, got an article in the USA Today. And as a result of those few moms coming together, Starbucks changed their policy, went from skip Starbucks Saturday to celebrate Starbucks, when the CEO of Starbucks came out and made a formal announcement nationwide that guns would no longer be allowed in their cafes. That is the power of our purse. By just a few people, and then a few people more, and then a few people more doing the right thing. There are so many things that we need to change in this world. There are global warming issues. There are sustainability issues. There are workers' rights issues, women's rights issues, food safety issues, animal rights issues, the list, geopolitical issues. The list goes on and on and on. And the reality is that governments cannot legislate all of this. It has to be companies who stand up to do the right thing. And it has to be us as consumers, and us as women, the most powerful consumers on the planet, that hold those companies accountable. And that's the power of our purse, and that's why we must become conscious consumers. So I started off talking about my mom, and I'm going to finish up talking about my daughter. She's here today, Annie. She's 12. And we were driving home from school a couple of months ago, and I remember driving in the car, you know, and she says, "Mom, we need to talk." Now, if you're a mother or a parent, you know these are like the 4 worst words you can ever hear, right? Like, fear immediately goes through. You're like, oh my God, what is happening? What, you know, we'll move, new name, I don't know, you know? So she says, we need to talk, so I'm driving. I steel myself. Okay. And she said, I want to become a vegetarian effective immediately. I'm like, okay, I can deal with this, right? Like, all right. She said, I want to become a vegetarian immediately. She said, cow farts and burps, they project carbon monoxide, and it's destroying our atmosphere, Mom. We have to do something about it. She said, moreover, in this giant dissertation, moreover, I refuse to eat another living animal ever again. All right, I support this. This is cool, right? But I had no idea how quickly this was going to impact us as a family, right? Because immediately, no longer can we drive through McDonald's on the way to soccer games. Sunday night steak dinners, totally gone. And our whole family of 4, including my carnivore son, are like, what is happening, right? And our whole eating behavior changed. It was this really cool thing. And I thought, wow, she is being a conscious consumer. We're thinking more about what we're putting in our bodies. So I saw conscious consumerism pass from mother to daughter, and then back again. So I tell you, embrace the power of your purse, embrace conscious consumerism, be more mindful. Small changes can make a difference. And thank you very much.
All right. That's such a good video. It's so true. You have reference groups. Those are groups, social groups, work groups, family, close friends. Customer identifies with and may want to join. They influence consumers' attitudes and behavior. A reference group helps shape a person's attitudes and behaviors. We have opinion leaders. Those are people who influence others. They're not necessarily higher income or better educated, but perhaps are seen as having greater expertise or knowledge related to some specific topic. For example, a local high school teacher may be an opinion leader for parents in selecting colleges for their children. These people set trend and other conform express behavior. If a marketer can identify an opinion leader for a group in the target market, then the effort can be directed toward attracting these individuals. For example, if an ice cream parlor is attempting to attract the local high school trained opinion leaders at the school may be very important to the success. An information technology specialist with a great deal of knowledge about computer brands is another example of opinion leader. These people purchase often lie in the front of leading trends. The IT specialist is probably a person who has the greatest and latest tech products, and opinion is likely to carry more weight than any other advertisement. We look at role expectations. A role assumed by a person is nothing more than a prescribed way of behaving based on situation. person's position is a situation. Your reference group determines much of how the role can be performed. As a student, you're expected to behave in a certain way under certain conditions. Conformity. Conformity is related to our roles, and we modify our behaviors in order to coincide with the group norms. Norms are behavioral expectations that are considered appropriate regardless of the position we hold. Group communications for opinion leaders. As consumers, we're often seeking out the advice and knowledge friends or acquaintances who can provide information, give advice, or actually make the decision for us. For some product categories, there's professional opinion leaders who are quite easy to identify. For example, auto mechanics, makeup artists, and financial advisors and physicians. Word of mouth, warm influence. Consumers are influenced by the things they hear other people say. This is known as word of mouth warm communication. It happens every time you ask somebody a recommendation or opinion on a product or service, and every time somebody volunteers opinion. Do you have a good dentist? Where's your favorite place to go for a faux? What would be a good first dance song at a wedding? Who's taken marketing and which instructor should I get? Inspiration reference group, on the other hand, is comprised of those individuals who consumers may not know personally, but they admire because of their popularity and notoriety. Have you ever dreamed of becoming a professional player of basketball or another sport? You have an inspirational reference group. These figures hold sort of power over consumers because these aspire to be like them and have that kind of lifestyle. Famous athletes, musicians, actors, and other people, public figures can represent aspirational reference groups. I remember my mom used to watch these YouTube channels with like fixer-upper houses. And this one guy, he always would go to like Home Depot and she'd always watch his YouTube, right? And then one day she was crying and I was like, "What happened, Mom? Your friend died?" And she's like, "This YouTuber guy that I was watch, Henry, he passed away from COVID." And I was like, "You know him personally?" "No." I was like, "Why are you crying then? I thought maybe he was your coworker or something." So it was kind of weird. I remember when Gilbert died from that show, Anne of Green Gables, the movie series. I said something about like, "Oh, Gilbert died. I'm so sad." And someone's like, "Your ex-boyfriend Gilbert died. I'm so sorry." And I was like, "I never dated Gilbert." And that's the character's name from Anne of Green Gables. So it's just so funny the way people are now. Proximity is the extent to which people are physically near us, influence the relationships we build. We have mere exposure, which is a tendency to prefer stimuli, including but not limited to people that we've seen for frequently. Influencers. With the lack of conscious about influencers, the writer defines a range of the third parties who exercise the influence of organizations and potential customers. Here she is. She's wearing hearts. Brand community. A group of consumers who share a set of social relationships based on usage. And we have anti-brand community, the same way that brand communities are forming around commonly used brands. Different situations. We have atmospherics. The effects of store atmospherics on shopping behavior have been explored since the 1960s. He argues that consciously controlled and designed consumption space can influence the emotional state of customers, which increase their likelihood of making purchases. These are 5 groups of variables. External variables are those mostly determined with the store location is selected and most challenging to change the open stores. We can look at external variables like interior, entrances, maybe exterior display, heights of buildings, size of building, color of buildings, surrounding stores, law in gardens, address, location, archaeological style, surrounding area, parking availability, congestion, and traffic and exterior walls. General interior variables, flooring, carpet, color scheme, lighting, music, scents, width of aisles, wall consumption, paper, paint and wallpaper, ceiling, composition, and merchandise. We have layout and design variables, space design, allocation, placement of merchandise, grouping of merchandise, workstation placement, placement of equipment, placement of cash registers, waiting areas, waiting rooms, department locations, traffic flow, ranks and cases, waiting queues, furniture, and dead areas. Pop and decoration variables, point of purchase displays, signs and cards, wall decorations, degree and certificate, pictures, artwork, product displays, usage instructions, price displays, and technology. Human variables, we have employee characteristics, employee uniforms, crowding, customer characteristics, and privacy. Crowding, that's another situational factor. Have you ever left a store and not purchased anything because it was just too crowded? Some people, it's just pretty crowded because there's not enough space to walk. But other places, it's just really like junky. Like whoever designed it didn't like use the wall space right, you know? You've been in some department stores where they might have like all the walls have clothing. Then they may even have like some walls in between, and they on the dressing room, they might have walls. You know what I mean? If you go to certain department stores, you'll see like walls in the middle of the store. You know, they're trying to use all the space they can. One thing I know is I went to this thrift store, or it was like, I don't know, some little, I don't know, if it's a thrift store or what, but it was a bunch of used stuff. And of course, the lady was saying if you use cash, she'll give you a better discount. So I bought like two of these like little jewelry holder things. They were cute. They were like little figurines. And I remember it was like one was $8, one was 7. But if I paid with my card, it was going to be like a couple more dollars. But I walked in there, and I remember I was with my another professor who works at your school, and him and I were in there, and he said to me, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm at a garage sale or something, or in somebody's attic." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's true. Like, you can't even walk in here. There's stuff everywhere." And I don't think they really cared because it was like a thrift store, like some place where we resell. So they were so disorganized. But if they want to make really good sales, they need to organize their stuff. They can't just throw it in there, you know, because it did. It looked kind of like a rummage sale or like a flea market, you know, or maybe they wanted to feel like a swap meet, but it was old stuff too. So it was very crowded. And then your locations, decisions are critical to the ultimate success of retail. There are certain locations that are just really bad. I can think of a couple. Sometimes it's on an intersection, in the middle of the road. Sometimes there's like no parking. Sometimes there's only one way to get in there. That's bad. That's a bad location. Good locations allow ready access, attract large numbers of consumers, and increase the potential sales of the retail outlets. Here you go. Here's an example right here. They're using the wall space. And if they really wanted to, they could even put hooks and hook them up, you know, and put mannequins and stuff on the walls. The layout is a count where they're designing facilities. Presumptually, the longer you wander around a facility, the more you want to spend. Grocery stores frequently place bread and milk products at the opposite ends of the store because people need both types of products. We have transition zone at the entry of the store. It allows customers to get their bearings and choose their shopping paths. In other words, products and signs and designs are the very front of the store. There might be seen where there's no transition for the customers when they enter. Hedonic shopping experience involves pure enjoyment, excitement, captivism, escapism, and spontaneity beyond the purchase of a product. Time starved. Shoppers can't pay their utility bills, local taxes, insurance, pension premiums, and 7-Eleven Japan stores even make photocopies. People's moods temporarily affect their spending patterns. Some people enjoy shopping. It's entertaining for them. The extreme of compulsive spenders get the temporary high from spending. Chapter reflections. All right. And that concludes today. See you next time.